Hey, folks, Gene Gallen here with the Chatham Journal. I got Asheebo Rojas of the Chatham News Record for our weekly ChathamNC Sports Roundup here on Thursdays at noontime. Here's the agenda you see ahead of you. We're going to talk about the two playoff games that happened last week. Then Asheebo's going to talk about what stories he's got in Chatham News Record and everyone's favorite, his athlete of the week. Of course, we'll talk about also soccer playoffs update. High school wrestling season has started, so we're going to get a little bit into that. And then, folks, of course, basketball previews coming up. Some teams have already played. Some teams are playing this week, and some teams are going to be starting next week. So Shiba's going to give you a rundown of that, and he's going to provide his unofficial preseason basketball power rankings for both the girls and boys team. We'll talk about the fact that we'll not have a roundup next week, and then what's coming up on December 4th. So let me get rid of the screen, and let's go into Asheebo. What happened last week in the first round of the high school football playoffs?
Yeah, so it was kind of a similar story for both teams, for both Northwood and Chatham Central. And both teams really just struggled to stop the run in their games. And starting with Northwood, they went up to Goldsboro to play Eastern Wayne and lost that one 44-14. They got up to a slow start, both offensively and defensively. Defensively, like we said, I mean, they just couldn't control the line of scrimmage. And Eastern Wayne loaded up with their quarterback, two other running backs, and really, picked up chunks of yards in the run game. But that also opened up the passing game as well, because Isaiah Oates, the Eastern Wayne quarterback, not only did he rush for, I think, over 100 yards, but he threw for 4 touchdowns as well. And, I mean, offensively, Northwood, and it was kind of a problem all year where they just kind of get out of sync, drop passes, Grayson Cox, scrambling, struggling to get out of sacks, throwaways from the pressure. And, of course, the run game just kind of struggled in that one, too. They try to get some things outside with Robert Tripp, but Eastern Wayne did a really good job of just pursuing the football, playing disciplined defense and getting in the backfield all night, which pretty much, just shut down Northwood's offense for most of that game. I think they went down in halftime 22-0, and they just couldn't climb back out in the second half. Even when the coaches came down, tried to fire the team up. It just wasn't a good night overall for Northwood, and they lost that first round game to Eastern Wayne. But for Chatham Central, a little bit of the same thing. They went up against a really good running back in Jeremiah Johnson from Pender, and he went for over 200 yards, 6 touchdowns on just 10 carries. I think that was his 7th 200-yard rushing game of the season. And just as a combined team, I think they went over 400 yards, 450 actually, 473 to be exact, on the ground. Which, anytime like Dalton Brown said after the game against Eastern Wayne, if you can't stop the run, it's going to be a bad night for you. So, but yeah, Chatham Central, even though the loss they took in the first round of the playoffs, they still had a pretty historic year with Coach Little. Of course, they win multiple games for the first time since 2018. And they also had a lot more close games. I think they had 3 games decided by 1 possession this season, which was the most since 2018 when they also had 3 games decided by 1 possession. So, Coach Little went on Facebook, sent a message to the team after the win, says he wishes he had more time with this group, and they built a brotherhood this season that really showed on the field. And I mean, we're really seeing the growth of the program from Little's first year last year to this year now. And that was one of the biggest things, we talked about with him a couple of weeks ago, was making those big losses from last year and a little smaller this year. And I think for the most part, they did that this season.
Yeah, I saw that information that Coach Little posted, and he said again they hadn't won this many games in over 6 years, so that was good to see. And I know there's some folks that are saying, hey, we need to win more games. And yes, Coach Little is working on that. So, folks, I also want to let you know next year when you have the preseason media day with all the football teams, Sheba will be out there and asking questions, and I think you're going to see progress going towards next year. I think you and I, and when we also had Coach Hall speak here, and there's certain people that say, hey, if you don't have a middle school program here in the county, that puts you at a disadvantage against a lot of other schools in other counties. And I think that's pretty much true. Don't know if the school board is, I know there's one member who would love to have middle school uh, football, but I don't know if all the other board members would buy into it. Also, you mentioned Robert Tripp. It's no surprise. I don't think people, I mean, you can find the information out there. Robert has been, I've talked with his dad. He's been to Elon College's game on Saturday. Also, Campbell, he's been posting that information out on his social media site. And the interesting thing is he appeared at Campbell first, posted a picture of himself smiling on the sidelines, and then the Elon College coach reached out to him and asked him to come out. So again, Robert's a junior this year. He will be back next year, and wishing him and Northwood the best of luck going into next year. Do we have anything else on football, or is that pretty much we're just wrapping it up this week, aren't we?
Yep, we're just wrapping it up because we got winter sports in full force now, starting today with a lot of our basketball teams around the county.
All right. Well, in that case, before we get into that, why don't we go into the papers coming out today, the Chatham News and Record. Folks, you need to go pick it up, hard copy again. I was talking to somebody about the fact that I think the grandparents of some of the players, they used to do it for their kids, and now they're doing it for their grandkids. But anyway, Asheebo, let's go into what are your stories that you've got in the Chatham News and Record before we get into your athlete of the week.
Yeah, so we have, of course, some recaps from football playoff games last Friday with Northwood and Chatham Central. And then we have our two Mid-Carolina 1A, 2A basketball previews for the boys and girls. If you guys remember, last week we did it for the charter schools, Woods Charter and Chatham Charter. This time we got some blurbs. I went around the county the past couple of weeks talking to the teams at the jamborees and some of their practices, and got some more information on them going in before going into the thick of the regular season. And yeah, we summarize what to expect from each team on the boys and girls side going into this year. It's going to be a really competitive year, especially on that girls side, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on today. But we also have our roundup with a big recap of C4's final soccer game on Friday night. And then we also have, of course, the beginning of winter sports with wrestling, basketball going on, and a little bit of indoor track as well, which will be coming out in this week's paper. And then we also have a blurb from the North Carolina High School Athletic Association. They released their final ADM numbers on Tuesday. I think there were some numbers that were released earlier during the weekend, but they made them final this week. And just to give you guys a quick rundown of that while we're talking about it, if you guys haven't already seen it, but C4 will be looking to move up into the 5A classification when they go into 8 classes next season. Jordan Matthews will be 4A, Northwood 3A, and then our 3 1As, Chatham Central, Chatham Charter, and Woods Charter will remain 1As in the new classification model. Oh, and then also coming out, I think. Before you go on, did the North Carolina High School Athletic Association, do they put out when they're planning to actually? Because they're going to have the divisions, but they're also going to have conferences. They mention anything about when they're going to announce the conferences? Because that's going to start from 2026. Is that correct? The new model is going to start for 2025. So
it starts for next school year, the 2025 school year.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. And I think Commissioner Crew Tucker, she said in a statement that in the coming weeks, the association is getting ready to draft the proposed conference alignment. And of course, it has to be reviewed by the realignment committee. And then they'll work to develop first draft for the membership approval. And then that decision, to expand from 4 to 8 classifications, as Commissioner Tucker says, was approved back in May during the 2023, at the May 2023 annual meeting. So, yeah, at this point, like you said, the time is to get the conferences going and drafted. And it's looking like they're sticking with the conference model as of now. So it's interesting to see how they do it. Of course, we got to consider the distance for the schools. So it is likely that we probably see a lot of multi-classification conferences, kind of like we have now, but still in the air. Have to wait on the association to make the final say and get that process started. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they figure that out. And I know we talked a little bit with some of the ADs. They really want to keep those rivalry games, right? The Seaforth and Northwoods, Northwood and JMs, JM and Chatham Centrals, those type of matchups, around the county with the community being so close and so tight knit will be pretty important going forward. So we'll also have to see how the teams will be able to keep those games going as they go into new classifications.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I think all the ADs in the area said they wanted to do that. The interesting thing I think is going to be is once the conference is announced, and I know you're going to write about it, is what the ADs and what the coaches think of their new competitors. I suspect, again, there's going to be, Chatham Central and JM are going to stay 1A, is that right? Or no, JM's moving up, aren't they?
Yeah, JM will be a 4A school.
Okay.
But because based on the ADM numbers, I think Seaforth is the biggest school with over 1,000, and you got JM right under 1,000 at like 901. So they'll be up in 4A, and then Northwood, Chatham Central, Chatham Charter, and Woods Charter in that order as far as size of the schools. Yep.
All right. So when that comes out, folks, Asheebo R38 on X, and we'll discuss it here on the Roundup, and I'm sure Asheebo's going to write about it. And then next year when we have the media day before the football season kicks in, we'll probably be talking a bunch about that. All right. You want to let us know about more stuff you've got in it, or are you ready to talk about your athlete of the week?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say tomorrow it's going to be online, but it's also in the paper today. We also had a story from Sandhills Community College volleyball team competing at nationals. I think they made it to the second round and then playing the consolation bracket as well. But they have Reagan Smith, a former Jordan Matthews standout from volleyball last year, on their team. So if you want to read a little bit more about her coach made some positive comments about her as well and her impact on the team as a freshman. She did some good things this year for Sandhills Community College. And you can read more about the team in Reagan as well. Athlete of the week this week is down at Chatham Charter, Brendan Lavelle on the boys basketball team, the senior forward. He's been having a really good start to the season. And he's athlete of the week because, excuse me, when Chatham Charter went down to NCSSM Durham on the 11th, he poured in a 28-point, 20-rebound double-double. They went into overtime, and he did some good things in an overtime period as well to help his team get over the top and win that game. And, I mean, it's big for Brendan because I don't know if you guys remember, but last year he went down with a really bad leg injury towards the end of the year, ended up missing the rest of the season. And he's really worked his way back pretty quickly, worked hard to get back on the court and was able to start this year. And he's having a really outstanding season. I think this week as well, he had another double-double when Chatham Charter beat Wheatmore 64-45 on the 19th. He had 24 points and 15 rebounds in that one. So pretty dominant start, like we said, for Brennan. And congratulations to him for being our athlete of the week.
Definitely congratulations. And again, his family, friends, and fans need to pick up a paper so they can read about it and save a copy of it. All right. Are we ready? Anything else in the paper that you want to make folks aware of, or are you ready to talk about high school soccer? Because the soccer playoffs, I think pretty much for Chatham County are over, aren't they?
Yeah. So soccer playoffs, we had Seaforth playing at James Keenan on Friday. They had to play this one they played at 4:00 Friday. It was supposed to be on Thursday, but I think they moved it with the rain. And so I went down there before the Northwood game to catch them because they were on the same side of the state, just an hour away from each other. And I mean, Seaforth, they came out and they took some early punches from James Keenan, not goals, but James Keenan was controlling the possession early on, getting some good shots. They just weren't falling, but Seaforth survived. Kind of that period at the beginning of the game, settled in, and they started playing a little bit more patiently. And they even got some good looks there in the end of the first half. But they just weren't going in. They had a really good one. I think it was a rebound off of a free kick, and one of their players got the rebound, was right in front of the goal, and from where I was looking, looked like it was an easy kick in, but it just didn't go through. So those missed opportunities really came back to bite Seaforth a little bit there in the second half. And then that's when James Keenan really poured it on at the end of the second half with their star player, Peter Omega. He had 2 goals there to pretty much, seal the deal with under 10 minutes to go in the game. But, I mean, for Seaforth, it was a pretty historic playoff run because, of course, they won their first playoff game in this run, won another one with a thriller in overtime and in PKs, and then come here playing a really good James Keenan team and competing as well. I mean, it's a really good sign for the direction that Seaforth boys soccer is going. Even though they'll be losing key players from the first year class with Jack Hayes and Logan Sparrow, the 2 leaders for that program. But I mean, Coach Viana, after what he did with the girls team last year and what he's expected to do again this year, it looks like something is also kind of brewing on the boys' side at Seaforth as well. So, I mean, I won't be surprised if we see a little bit of a jump next year with the experience the young guys got with this as well. That watch the older guys, take on this playoff run, get this far. Now they know how to win a little bit, and we'll see how they build off of this next year.
Now the Seaforth boys, even the first game that they won, they were the lower seeds in all 3 games, weren't they, in the playoffs?
Yes, they were a number 28 seed in the playoffs. Okay. Made it all the way to the 3rd round. Yep.
Right. I think the thing we were kind of surprised, at least I was surprised, you may not have been surprised, was that JM lost their first game in the playoffs. What's your sense with where JM is now and where they'll be going into the 2025 season?
Yeah, I think JM lost in the 2nd round. But, they like we said, I mean, this year they had a young team. And, I mean, even with the team they had, they still had some senior leaders from the teams before that made it far in the playoffs. But, I mean, like we said, a little bit with Seaforth, right? That experience those young players got from the playoff run for what they learned from the older guys all season. And now they got a full season under their belts. I think that would really help Jordan Matthews. They also played, Coach Paul Crawtrose always schedules some really tough teams for them as well so that they could learn from their mistakes and grow from those experiences. So I think Jordan Matthews will bounce back with another strong year next year. I mean, even this year, and I wrote a story about it a couple of weeks ago. I mean, on the field, of course, the product is the same, like we said, as years prior, but they were still finding ways to win games. They were winning close ones, and we're still leading the conference all the way up until the end of the season when Southeast Alamance took it from them at the end of the year. And they ended up losing the Mid-Carolina 1A, 2A conference for the first time since they were in the conference and the conference existed for only a few years. So I think Jordan Matthews will be all right, going into next year and years to come. They're always going to be a team that's going to be tough to beat as long as Coach Crawtrose is there. His players come back, pour into the program because it's, as we know, it's a family thing. It's a community thing as well, and they really take pride in their soccer team down in Siler City.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Their off years, they come back strong and learn from those off years. And Coach Paul Crawtrose does. He's been there a long time, coach. So and he gets into it, and the players appreciate him. All right, so that takes care of high school soccer. Next on our agenda, we've got high school wrestling. And while you get into that, I'm going to try to find that picture that we were talking about before we start. So why don't you give us a roundup as to high school wrestling? I think it's kicked off for just about everyone. And while you're talking about that, I'll see if I can pull up that picture.
Yeah, so starting with the boys side, because we'll talk about the girls a little bit. We got some girls teams this year for the first time for some schools. But on the girls, on the boys side, Seaforth, they got off to a hot start last week with wins over Asheboro, Athens Drive, and Southern Lee. Pretty big wins over Asheboro and Southern Lee, 70-12 over Asheboro, 65-12 over Southern Lee. And then they got an early challenge though. Last on Friday when they hosted Uwari Charter, the back-to-back 1A champions from 2023 and 2024. And they did fall short in that one, 44-28. But that's good experience to have early on. Go up against some really tough teams and get a good feel of where the team is at. So, that's where Seaforth is. Pretty good start for the Hawks. Jordan Matthews, they got started last week as well, but they lost their duel to South Davidson 60-24. And they also lost to the North Carolina Leadership Academy 48-36 at home. And then Northwood also got started. They lost to Northwest Guilford 77-0 and Pinecrest 80-0 in their quad meet. But that's due to numerous forfeits. I think they had a lot of kids on the football team still playing last week, so they'll probably look a lot better once they get those kids back on the mat for this week and the rest of the season. So, those are the early scores from last week. And then the girls' news. I mean, we had some girls' teams get started this week. The biggest one was Chatham Central. They made history last night by being their first ever female wrestling team to compete in duels, and they won their duel against Bartlett Yancey. I think it was who it was yesterday. So congratulations to the Bears. I heard that the crowd was really epic. The team got really a lot of support last night at the meet. And I mean, the girls, like, as you can see, they look excited for the season. They're really, really, really happy with the big win. And I mean, and also too, I saw this is a post from John Wharf, the softball coach at Chatham Central. I know he had mentioned that, the wrestling coach at Central, Steven Silhan, he's been really trying to bring this program back to where it was once a couple years ago with state champions. Really good talent coming through there. And I mean, they had some guys competing pretty far in some big matches last year. Now they got the girls team excited. Things are looking up for Chatham Central Wrestling as well.
Yeah, Chatham Central has had a history of good wrestling teams, and as you said, they've done well, and Seaforth will probably be doing well this year. One of the interesting things is we'll get down to the bottom of it where we're going to be next week. This Saturday, Duke is going to be at Seaforth. Now, Seaforth, I think wrestling is wrestling, but they're going to be away, if I'm not mistaken. So Duke is and I haven't gotten the reason yet. I don't know if you know, but they'll be at Seaforth. They've got 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and I think a 2 o'clock matches going on. And the admission is free, so you can go and see Duke wrestling team at Seaforth High School this coming Saturday. I plan to be there to get some pictures and videos, and it's an opportunity to see a college team wrestle. Several years back when UNC lost their power over in Chapel Hill, the UNC team came over and wrestled at the Northwood gym, and the gym was packed. So it's an opportunity to do something, see something that you don't see in the county very often, and it doesn't cost you anything. So take advantage of that. Anything else on wrestling?
Nope. I think we're good on wrestling for now.
All right. Why don't we get you going on to the basketball previews? Give us a rundown. And then, folks, we talked about this last week. We didn't do that last week, but we're going to have an unofficial early season power rankings for both the girls and the boys. So that's coming up. I know people kind of get aggravated with it, but you folks love it because it's something to talk about. And it's funny because Asheebo and I sometimes run into people going, well, I don't know how come you rank them higher than us. Hey, that's fine. You know what? Keep winning and you'll be ranking higher than everybody. All right, Asheebo, let's start off the basketball preview here for Chatham County. Give us a quick rundown.
Yeah, so we can start with the boys. Of course, biggest thing is Northwood, right? Everybody's interested to see what Northwood's going to look like without Drake Powell, without Fred Whitaker, without Jake Layton. I mean, the big names that really helped them to have a really successful year last year and some successful years before that. So they're bringing back a lot of key players from those teams, right? Cam Fowler, Bo Harvey, Isaiah Blair, Chad Graves, the big man down low. But they also brought in some transfers like Rajay Torres from Jordan Matthews to help out in the guard position. And then the biggest transfer so far, if you guys have seen them in the scrimmages or kind of read some of the early stuff we wrote about them from their summer scrimmages was Josiah Brown, a transfer from Wilmington, was come in, added shooting and playmaking. That's really, looked to be very valuable for Northwood so far in their early outings. So, I mean, Northwood, they're still going to be a really good team. And then, of course, they have some really good defensive depth on their team as well. The sophomore Reese Adams, also Jalen Skurlock, who I saw them play in their scrimmages last week. I mean, really good defensive players that could muck some things up for them up in the front court. I mean, in the back court. But yeah, I mean, Northwood will be a really, really good team once again. I don't think there's going to be too much of a fall off for the Chargers. Excuse me, with the exit of Drake Powell and, like we said, Fred Whitaker and some of those senior leaders they had last year. Seaforth, interesting team, right? They have Coach John Barry coming in for his first season, but they also have a pretty good, pretty talented roster as well with Nate Emerson. We know what he did last year. It was all conference and one of the kind of the under the radar, one of the better players in the conference last year as well. And then Noah Lewis, a great guard and versatile piece for them that can do multiple things on the court. And they have also some returners like junior Declan Lindquist, some hungry guards that actually have already played with Coach Barry when they were on the JV team a couple of years ago. So now they have some players that already kind of know the system. So that will kind of help with the transition to Coach Barry taking over. And yeah, I mean, it's really going to be pretty interesting to see how they put it all together when the season gets started. I think they start tomorrow, and I will actually be there for their first game at Carborough to open the year. And then Jordan Matthews, we looked at them at the Jamboree as well last weekend, and they have a lot of youth on their team. The biggest players I think to look out for with Jordan Matthews would be freshman Nolan Mitchell, and he showed a lot of good things in those scrimmages as a crafty guard, can handle the ball, score when he needs to, and also make plays when he needs to. And then of course they have Kamari Hadley, who's returning for them. He's talked to him a little bit. He said he's been improving his game, improving his comfortability with handling the ball and shooting as well. And he put that on display in the scrimmages. But I think, with Jordan Matthews, I think they will experience a little bit of kind of, young player issues, freshman things this season. They did lose their first game of the year earlier this week against Trinity. But I think, once they get some more experience under the belt, get it together a little bit, throughout the season, I think they could be a really kind of like a surprise team later on in the year because they're really athletic, they're really fast, and they're going to try to use that to their advantage this year, especially without Brendan Oldham down low, who was really big for them last year. Because Brendan Oldham is now at Chatham Central, who, they were second in the conference last year, and they beefed up with Oldham. They'll have a senior Reed Albright, senior Aiden Johnson as well. And I'm pretty sure they're getting Nick Glover from the football team into their backcourt as well. So some more athleticism on that team. And yeah, as much as they were a pest last year, even for the juggernaut that Northwood was, I imagine they'll be even better coming into this year and make that race for the top of the conference with Northwood, Southeast Alamance. It'll be really interesting this year to watch with what Chatham Central has now. So, yeah, like we said, it's going to be pretty competitive on both sides because with the girls as well, the girls starting with Seaforth, talk to them. The biggest changes is, they had some of their size leave this year with Jocelyn Gessner. She transferred to a school in New Jersey, and Sydney Ballard is now at Northwood down the road and added some size for Northwood. But, Seaforth, they're really hungry this year. They've come close to the state title the past 2 years, right? Runner-ups, and then going all the way to the regional final and facing North Pitt again with a really talented team that ended up winning the state championship. So I think Seaforth, with that hunger, that drive, the experience as well. Gabby White's going to be a senior. Katie Leonard, a junior. And they talked about, playing more together as a team, really building that togetherness and having a different energy in practices this year, Seaforth is still going to be a really hard team to beat. But excuse me, I'm looking at Northwood as well. Like I said, they have the size with the Glover twins, and now Sydney Ballard, and then they have big returners, right? And Nia Henry, Aaliyah Roberts, who can shoot the ball, Madeline Brooks, who can also shoot the ball as well, and then Natalia Whitaker, who has been a proven ball handler, who can also score, shoot, do everything that Northwood needs her to do to help them win. And they also have a sophomore that they're kind of excited for that came in this year, Princess America. I hope I'm saying that right. And she'll be playing down low, I think, for the Chargers, and will add a little bit more physicality to their team this year. So I think size, and getting the ball down to the bigs, as well as keeping up that fast pace, will be huge for the Chargers this year. And I think that race with Northwood and Seaforth is going to be really close, maybe even closer than last year. Now that Northwood got those new additions. And then Jordan Matthews, Gina and I talked to the Jordan Matthews girls after their scrimmages, and they have a good mix of youth and veteran leadership on their team. And a lot of that youth are now sophomores, like Jada Scott and Yamilet Lozano, who came back from last year after their freshman year. And Jada Scott has been off to a pretty good start as well, doing it all pretty much, rebounding, getting down low, getting buckets there. She can also step out in mid-range and three-point range to hit some shots as well. So Jordan Matthews could be a bit of a surprise team this year. They also have some other newcomers that they're excited about, like Lizzie Austin and Griselda Escobar, that can also shoot the ball really well as for them too. So definitely looking to see some good things out of Jordan Matthews. They actually lost their first game to Trinity in a nail biter, 34-32. So show some fight in that one. Just a close loss, and we'll see how they bounce back from that opening loss. And then we also talked to Chatham Central last week after one of their practices, and their team, kind of the same thing with Jordan Matthews a little bit, a good mix of experience and newcomers. The experience with Catherine Gaines. They lost, Catherine Gaines, Kelsey Hussey, Lauren Cavendish from last year. But they're still returning Carolee Dodson, Maddie Underwood, some huge seniors that have done some good things for them over the years. And they're really excited about some of their freshman guards that have come in and shown that they can really play some defense and fit into that style of, playing fast, up-tempo, to kind of make up for the size that they lack this year. So, and they also have it in their mind that they want to be closer and competing with the top of the conference, because they were up there in that fourth spot behind, I think, Southeast Alamance. And I mean, if you watch, of course, Seaforth and Northwood and even Southeast Alamance sometimes were, the cream of the crop, but Chatham Central was right below them and, the cream of the crop of everyone else. So they want to just move up a little bit, try to finish higher in the conference than they did last year, and really make some noise once they get into the playoffs.
All right. Let's get into power rankings. Oh, actually, Gabby White's committed to what school is she going to be going to for college? I know that she's not last year. Which one?
Virginia.
Okay. All right. Let's go into the power rankings. Do you want to start with the boys first and then go into the girls?
Yeah, start with the boys. Now, I don't have this written down, but I've been thinking about it because, we're going to start with the official one next week. But with the boys, I think, of course, I have to put Northwood at 1. I still think coming into this year, they are looking to be the best team in the county. But at 2, I'm going to start with Chatham Central there, just like we said, what they added from last year's season and retained from last year as well. And then at 3, I know it's a little bit taking a little bit of what we've seen early, but I'm going to put Chatham Charter at 3. And even though Coach Jason Messier said, this team will look a lot different later on in the season than what they do now. I mean, they're off to a really good start, led by, of course, Brendan Lavelle, and then their newcomer, Gabe McCoy from Providence Grove, that has been really big for them this year as well. And then at that 4th spot, I'm going to put Seaforth. I think Seaforth has all the tools, like we said, to have a really good team this year. Just got to put it all together with Coach Berry's system and his philosophy. And then at that 5 spot, Jordan Matthews. And then at that 6 spot, Woods Charter. And, of course, the teams at the bottom, that's not to say they're going to be bad teams this year. I just think, the rest of the county is going to be that good as well. Because, of course, we know Woods Charter has improved this year after making the playoffs last year and bringing a lot of those players back who really want to kind of build off of that. So,
yeah, you and I had an opportunity to talk to a couple players and to Coach McNeil, and he said that they were going to be playing harder. And I think, as you said, some of them have gotten another year under their belts. And Woods Charter lost, I think, their game yesterday, 71-65. So they're playing competitive, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
You mentioned out of the, again, preseason early stuff. Are you seeing that we can have some really competitive intra-county games this year? I mean, Northwood, you got number one. I think I definitely agree with that. They don't have the high power they had last year, but you also have a better distribution of players over the other team. So what's your sense as to what we can see when those guys go up against each other?
Yeah, I mean, for Northwood, especially, right, they don't have Drake Powell, and we know what Drake Powell did. A lot of times he will play within the team, but if they needed him to get baskets or, to turn on a switch to really help the team get over the top, they had that. But this year, we're still going to have to wait and see what type of player is going to be that player for Northwood. I think a lot of people are expecting that from Cam Fowler. And I think he definitely has the capabilities of being that type of player. But, I mean, with the rest of the county also has really good players as well. Chatham Central has a lot of them. Jordan Matthews has some. I think especially that Chatham Central game could be a lot closer than what we saw last year, with that even being Northwood's closest competition in the county. And then it's real interesting to see how Jordan Matthews will compete against Chatham Central this year. Teams like Seaforth, how Seaforth will go up against Northwood and try to disrupt them. So, I think a lot of the competition this year is going to be coming from who can challenge Northwood the most. I feel like, but also too, like you said, we're going to have some really good games elsewhere with the rest of the county teams, especially in that Mid Carolina 1A 2A conference.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Plus the fact that we have Coach Berry coming back on as a varsity coach over at Seaforth, and the folks who have watched the live stream, we've had Coach Berry on several times last year. They know Coach Berry doesn't give up easily, so there's going to be a lot of competition. And I will post a graphic of the top 6 here of the power rankings so folks can take a look again. Again, it's preseason. But that's what we got for the boys. Northwood 1, Chatham Central 2, Chatham Charter 3, Seaforth 4, Jordan Matthews 5, and Woods Charter 6. So that's the rundown for the boys. We're going to talk about the girls coming up next on the girls' power rankings, and Asheebo and I will be at the Northwood varsity game tonight at 6 o'clock. So if you want, go see Asheebo. Buy him something from the concession stand. I think there's people that still owe you a hamburger or two. But let's go into the girls' basketball power rankings. What do you see for preseason unofficial power rankings?
Preseason for unofficial power rankings, it's really close at the top with Seaforth and Northwood. But I think just to start here, I'm gonna put Seaforth at 1 just in the preseason, but and Northwood at 2. But I can definitely see Northwood surmounting Seaforth, especially if they get them in the regular season this year, maybe once or twice, because I imagine we might see them play 3 times this year, kind of like we saw last year. But I think Northwood does have the potential to surmount Seaforth as the best team in the county this season. At that 3 spot, I think I'm going to put Chatham Central at that 3 spot, just with their experience and the coaching the job that Adrian Albright has done with her alma mater since getting there last year. I think they're going to be a really good team and even better than last year. And then at that 4 spot, wouldn't put Chatham Charter. I think they took some losses with the graduation of Mia Brooks. She's at Greensboro College now, and then they had Hannah Hedden transfer out, who was a really good guard for them last year as a freshman. But I think it's going to take them some time to kind of get those young players they have together, figure it out, and then they'll pick up some wins, especially once they get in the conference. And then at the 5 spot, I got Jordan Matthews, and at the 6 spot was Charter for the preseason power rankings, unofficial power rankings for now until we get the official ones once everyone plays next week.
Yeah, I feel comfortable with you. I think Woods Charter played and lost their first game earlier this week as well. So I'll put together graphics of that. Again, folks, this is a preseason thing, and I'm sure that over the regular season, a lot of these rankings may or may not change. We will see. All right. Anything else about basketball?
Nope. I think we previewed it well enough.
All right, folks, let you know that next week there is not going to be any Chatham NC Sports Update. Asheebo and I have talked. It's just a crazy week with Thanksgiving. The newspaper is going to be coming out early. Asheebo's got to get some of his stories done early. I've got to get some pictures to the paper early. So we're just going to enjoy the week, because the week after that, I think there's going to be basketball in Chatham County going on just about. I know it's going to be going on every week. The other big thing is Asheebo's working on a story, but come December 4th, it's going to be Alabama playing at UNC. And for folks in Chatham County, you know what that means. It's the Battle of Pittsboro. I know some folks don't. I know one person in particular that doesn't want me to refer to it as, but it's going to be Jarin Stevenson, who played at Northwood his freshman year, played at Seaforth his sophomore and junior year before he went to Alabama early, and Drake Powell, who played with Jarin. They both played at Northwood their freshman year, and Drake finished off his career at Northwood and is now playing at UNC. So the two of them are going to go up against each other. That's going to happen December 4th. Asheebo and I will both be out there for that game. Asheebo will be writing the story. I'll be taking pictures. Again, Asheebo, follow him on R38. And the thing you got to remember, folks, is Asheebo's following this game from the perspective of he's the Chatham County sports writer. So he's going to bring you insights that some of the national and regional guys have no idea. So definitely stay tuned for that December 4th. If you're watching the game, also let Asheebo follow him on X on Asheebo R38. Game-wise, we'll both be at the game tonight, Northwood girls basketball, and then next week, I don't have any idea what I'm doing next week. I will be at the Duke wrestling thing at Seaforth on Saturday. Asheebo, do you have any idea as to what you're doing beyond tonight's game?
Like I said, I'll be at Carborough. I'll be at Carborough tomorrow for Seaforth's boys opener. But after that, I'm not too sure, because I know next week sports will probably slow down with Thanksgiving coming up next week, but we'll see. We'll have to check the schedule.
All right, and folks, I'm gonna as always, I am going to remind you that you need to check out Asheebo at Asheebo R38, because you will probably see after tonight's girls Northwood basketball game, Asheebo will do a couple of interviews with a couple of the players and the coach, and then tomorrow we'll definitely be talking to a couple of the Seaforth players. And the only thing is, if he talks to Coach Barry instead of 2 minutes, that may turn into 2 hours. I'm just kidding, Coach Barry. If you're watching, just kidding. But Coach Barry will give him a rundown of what he feels his team, where they're doing well and where they need to make improvements. All right, folks, next week, enjoy Thanksgiving. Spend time with your family. Asheebo is going to be spending time with his family. I'm going to be spending time with his family. And then the following week, we're going to come back with a whole bunch of basketball. Wrestling's going to be going on as well. So thank you for watching. Appreciate the folks that watch us. We get about 800 views on Facebook and about 200 on X and about a couple dozen on YouTube. So thank you very much. Have a good Thanksgiving. You got anything else to say, Asheebo?
Nope, all good. Like I said, like Gene said, thank y'all for watching. It's been fun doing this the past 2 years, and we're looking forward to another great winter sports season with basketball, wrestling, indoor track, all the winter sports that Chatham County's athletes are partaking in, and yeah, looking forward to having fun this season.
All right, and if you haven't done it already, go pick up a copy of the Chatham News Record and read Asheebo's stories on paper. All right, folks, thank you very much. We will see you in 2 weeks, and follow Asheebo on Asheebo R38. Bye.